Hey there, just me again. Just here, leaning on these. Oh, what are these? Well, I'll show you. In my little video today, I shall be reviewing one of my favourite series of all time, book series, and that is the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. I shall just get this pile here. This is my pile of books so far. This is not all the volumes in the series. There have been about 11 books I think at last count in the series. But here is my collection. Mwah! Oh, what I partially love about these books is that the cover designs match so nicely together. For example, see what you got. I mean, as you see, they're similar, but then significantly different. And that, yeah, I just love them. Really do. Which one's my favourite one? Which one was it? I think I can't choose between Blood Rites and Foul Moon. By the way, this is the vampire-orientated one, and this is the werewolf one. So, a brief rundown quickly, just to tell you what they are. The Dresden Files is about Chicago's only a wizard in the phone book, Harry Dresden. And he is regularly employed by either private individuals that come to him, or as a special consultant to the local police department, and he solves a number of magically inclined cases, whilst also trying to deal with the many issues that's going through his personal life. What was it? Let's see. He has to deal with vampires out to get him, a vengeful fairy godmother, shadowy wizards in the background trying to get at him, and somehow many of the cases that come his way are tied up in all the shenanigans he's getting involved in, along with the human elements he has to deal with as well. If I had to describe it, I would describe this as Sherlock Holmes modernised and with a huge amount of fantasy magic woven into it. It's actually really good. I heartily recommend it. Why do I heartily recommend it? Not only are the characters all given a nice amount of screen time, and they're not afraid to kill off the occasional important secondary character every now and again, which I've always have loved. Didn't so much like it in the Raven series. He's oh God, what was his name? The author, I can't remember. But if you look for Legends of the Raven, it's a famous fantasy series. Let's just say by the end of it, all but 2 of the main cast were killed off. We're talking over a dozen members here. But anyway, this one's more restrained. All the characters are given a nice amount of page time. They're well defined and characterized with their own faults, but they're also their own strengths, and they interact well with each other. Perhaps what I love the most about this is it is a fantastically well developed background mythos to the entire series. You start reading this book, Stormfront, which is the first one in the series, and whilst it becomes clear that there's a hell of a lot you don't know yet, at the same time, you don't feel that you're left so much in the dark that you can't tell and grasp what's happening. It's well explained, and whilst there's a huge amount of references to little bits and pieces, you're kind of prepared to allow that to go over the wayside because you know that it's going to be explained in the next book, which was Foul Moon. And I love the background mythos, and that's the thing. They mentioned about, so in the next book they go into the werewolf elements of the mythos, and they're opening up, they're expanding the universe, and it's a lot of this is actually true to life myths that the author Jim Butcher has taken. He's done a lot of great research into this. He's not been he's not allowed the limitations and the contradictions in the old myths to hold him back. He's tweaked it slightly in places to make it flow well into the book, but then it's still quite true to the source material. Well, he goes on about the different types of werewolves. I was using the old European folklore and also folklore from Caribbean culture, African culture, all their different types of werewolf shapeshifters, and he binds them together quite well. So whilst it's based on real life mythos, he makes it his own, and he opens up that side of the universe for us. Summer Nights expands on the fairy side. I mentioned about a vengeful fairy godmother before, and I wasn't kidding. And that's what I really like. The supernatural characters in this are shown to have real motivations and reasons for doing things. Things you get like Twilight, and I understand that not every character needs to have a solid characterization or strong traits, because at the end of the day you can't care for every secondary character that comes along. But a lot of the vampires in Twilight, for etc., fell very much by the wayside against the big spotlight of Bella and Edward and even Jacob, to be honest. Yes, until a number of the vampires and werewolves were just generic, with one or two traits being shared amongst them with some small variations. But this establishes the fairy mythos very powerfully, again based on real life mythoses, but not afraid to also include the other background he's expanding on. He's weaving it all together. So even though he's expanding it into one area in one book, he's not ignoring the rest of the story. And that's the other great thing about this, is whilst these are all one linear storyline with changes happening in each book to different characters and etc. Pardon me. At the same point, I do feel that most of these can be read alone. You will you will find out like something happened to this character. This person went through a painful experience in the last book, but you won't feel out of depth just picking alone and reading it as a standalone story. And that is the other great thing about these. None of these books that I've read so far, because I've read all of these, don't worry, I just haven't bought them, just left them. None of these books feel like filler volumes, and I think that is a real key strength of an author, and a key what's the word I'm looking for? Not strength. It's a key point in the author's favour if it can be shown that they can write many books about their characters, but none of them feel like they're just shelf warmers until you get onto something that the author really wants to go into. There will of course be books that stand out more than others. Summer Night in particular was one of my favourite books in the series, but whilst I hold that dear to my heart, I don't view it as lesser. And I think the main point I need to bring up about how good these books are is just by saying that these are some of the most addictive reads I've found so far. There is good solid humour in these books, which is rare in fantasy detective work. There are some attempts by some authors to write fiction, but this actually flows very well. They are detective stories at the end of the day, and they are very much detective. There is a fear when you get like fantasy or sci-fi elements, and that you can become lost in MacGuffins and mumbo jumbo as some supernatural event happens to solve everything, etc. But no, really, it's very much grounded in detective work. I would have to say this is my favourite detective fantasy, real, modern day series. That's why it's really good. blurs boundaries at the end of the day. These books, and like I said, they're addictive. I'm very cautious when I get these. I know myself. I know that I'll start reading and I'll get wrapped in the plot, and then I'll be trying to second guess what's happening, or trying to figure out what's going on. And before I know it, I started reading about 2:30. For example, I'll realise I should have had my dinner 6 hours ago, and it's gone 11 o'clock at night. That's just an example of how good it is. There are a couple of these I've stayed up into the earliest hours of the morning just to try and get another chapter finished. That's why I love them. Because great characters, great mythos, which I think is very important in any long-lasting book series. All of this combines together. When genre blurring, as I mentioned. All this combines together to make really good reads. Even if you're not normally a fantasy person, I think there's enough solid detective elements in this. Because at the end of the day, it is basically a detective book. Harry Dresden is a wizard, but he's a detective wizard. He's a consulting private eye. And a lot of his concerns revolve around making sure he gets money and gets money to live on at the end of the day. I mean, there are some holes in it. I mean, I don't understand if the White Council of Wizards in the books are so against normal people finding out about wizards, why they'd allow him to set up his own private detective agency and get away with it. I mean, all he needs to do is go on national television, make a few spells, and then the entire cover is blown. So far, I haven't actually found a good reason against that, besides blind faith that humans are skeptical in the books. But besides that glaring plot point, which can be easily overlooked, but I heartily recommend the Dresden Files. Like I said, you need to start with, let me just find it, start with Stormfront, which is a very strong debut indeed. And then it goes Foul Moon. Actually, let's consult this. Sometimes I get confused. So you've got Foul Moon, which is the werewolf one. Grave Peril, which expands the ghost and spirit front. Summer Night, which I mentioned, which expands the fairy ones. And so forth. Yeah. So I think I have covered all my points. Probably incoherently again, and not very well, as I usually do. You know me, I tend to babble too much. But I hope I have convinced you to go onto Amazon or Play and have a look and see if you like them yourself. Okay, I shall see you soon. Bye.